Well, today what we're going to do is we are going to go through the rebuilding of a typical Lionel E-unit. The tools here shown are pretty much all you'd ever need to really complete a good overhaul of one of these E-units, and what I like to use, the most essential tool to me, is this circlip ring pliers that opens when you squeeze them, and I use this to open up the sides of the E-unit to release the contacts and the roller. First thing I'm going to do to get started today is unsolder some of these wires. Looks like somebody in the past has worked on this a little bit, so it's kind of a big blob of solder here, and we'll just get rid of these pieces here. You also want to unsolder the power feed wire to the coil, because that comes off with one of the contact finger assemblies here, and we'll just get that out of the way. The next step is to actually open the body of the E-unit, and this little pin here and on the other side is the bar that spans across and actually holds the two sides of the E-unit assembly together, and this is where we're going to utilize the circlip pliers to expand the sides of this thing and pop off the and the way you want to do this is put these pliers in the body of the E-unit and just squeeze, and it pops apart. The contact fingers come out, but that's no problem because we're going to be working on them also. And what you've got is the roller assembly here with the ratcheting fingers. You've got the plunger assembly, which it will drop out. And you've got the set of the 4-finger contacts that will pop out also. Now is the time to inspect your contact roller assembly. Make sure that it's not melted in any way, that all the ratcheting fingers are present, not torn off, and the two supports on each end of the contact roller where it rides in the E-unit body assembly are good and not melted off. What happens when these things get corroded and dirty, that the resistance goes up in the connection of the contact fingers and they heat up and they actually will melt. I've had some that are just total blobs of plastic. Also, now is the time to inspect your contact finger assemblies here. Now is the time to inspect your contact finger assemblies. Look for burnt and pitted and destroyed contact fingers. Check both of them. These look to be in pretty good shape. These are readily available from aftermarket suppliers, but if you can reuse the original ones, do so. Don't hesitate to do so, because they're so much better quality than the aftermarket replacements. Now this next step, which is not necessary with every E-unit you ever go to use, if your arm lever here is loose and you need to tighten up this rivet, you can disassemble the entire E-unit body here just by getting a screwdriver of suitable size and prying up. You want to go ahead and flip it over on the other side and get your screwdriver in there and see if you can lift that off, which they tend to do. This way the coil assembly then will come out, and what this allows you to do is access the back side of the riveting here, so you can peen over. So you can peen over this rivet here to tighten up the little conical spring washer that gives you tension. Like I say, this is not necessary in every one, and you may or may not want to go this far with your E-unit. Another thing to mention, if you do disassemble your E-unit, make sure you know which way this orients, because there's a lot of different variations of E-units. Some orient this way, some orient this way, so make sure that you know which way it went for your particular application. As a side, if you need an E-unit that doesn't exactly fit your application, you can alter these and make them fit. After you are going to assemble the top portion of your E-unit that houses the solenoid coil, snap it back together, and I just use some type of suitable support, and I just slightly repeen the edges there, and that holds it as good as it will ever need to be. Now Now most of these contact roller assemblies end up being in pretty good shape, so what I usually do is I take a piece of Scotch-Brite. Here I'm using Scotch-Brite red. You can use the gray. It works great. It's non-metallic. And what I do is I just go around and polish all the grime off the roller assembly on each side to each, so each portion of the copper contact is nice and clean. It takes a minute, so you just want to go around and make sure you do a good job, because you really don't want to have to take this back apart again. Try and get as much of the old residue and grease and everything. One other point to make when rebuilding one of these E-units is don't oil anything. They don't need it, and oil will cause you all kind of problems. It gets all over the contacts. It'll cause arcing and burning and a lot of things you don't want to have happen. So stay away from any type of lubricant. And this one's starting to look pretty good. And that's what it should look like. Nice and shiny, clean, all the oxidation. Next we're going to turn our attention to the E-unit fingers. And with the same piece of Scotch-Brite, I'm going to go ahead and just pull it over the contacts like this. These contact fingers right here are where it makes contact with the roller drum assembly, and you got to make sure they're nice and clean. This particular set looks to be in great shape, so I'm going to go ahead and just reuse it. Same thing here with the 4-finger assembly. I usually support it on my finger and just go ahead and wipe the Scotch-Brite across the tips like this, get it nice and clean. Doesn't take long. It's usually not too bad. You want to make sure when you're doing this you inspect these contacts that they're not burnt or pitted, because what happens is you get a high resistance connection and your E-unit, if it works, it's going to heat up and you're going to have all kind of problems. So if these are damaged in any way, these finger assemblies are available from any parts supplier, and you can go ahead and just replace them with new ones.